Now call on General Secretary Michael Gillespie to introduce the annual report.
Colleagues, delegates, guests and friends, you're all very welcome to Kilkenny to our annual Congress 2026 here in the Lyret Hotel. Kilkenny is a city of character, history and warmth, and I hope you get time to enjoy it. I also want to remind you, delegates and guests, to use the buses provided throughout Congress, including for Wednesday night's dinner and entertainment. They will help keep Congress running smoothly, keep us on time, and take the hassle out of parking and travel. Let us be clear from the outset, we are not here simply to listen passively to a report. We are here to take stock, to speak plainly, and to decide strategically what comes next. The annual report covering 2025 is not just an administrative nicety. It's a record of the sustained work, hard choices, difficult negotiations and determined advocacy on behalf of TUI members. It shows a growing union engaged across every level of the system, with ministers, government departments, statutory agencies, employers, education partners, student unions and fellow trade unions, with the constant purpose to defend our members, to improve their working lives and to protect and improve the public education system. Once again in 2025, the work was conducted against the backdrop of decades-long neglect of public education. And that should anger every one of us. Our members continue to deliver excellence in conditions that are far from acceptable. Chronic underinvestment still hampers our schools, colleges and centres and campuses. It still widens inequality. It still places unreasonable pressure on staff, and the system still functions because educators absorb that strain. Fill the gaps, protect students from the consequences of bad policy and weak political choices. Your resilience, delegates, saves the day every day. Resilience is admirable, but it's also being exploited, abused. When staff are being stretched beyond reason, a properly functioning public education system cannot run on goodwill. Goodwill is not a budget line, and it's not a workplace plan. Goodwill does not fill vacancies or reduce class size. Goodwill does not create full hours, secure contracts, or proper supports, or safe workplaces. A world-class education system requires world-class investment. Ministers must ditch the plumosing, praising our excellence in public while quietly budgeting for decline in private, which does not fool us. In raw terms, the proportion of GDP invested in education must rise from the current abysmal level to at least the EU average. In 2025, the pressure on our schools and those who teach and learn in them intensified. Teacher supply remains one of the most urgent issues before us, and over the past 12 months, the recruitment and retention crisis tightened its grip. A system that cannot recruit and retain enough teachers is a system in decline. Too many younger teachers still subsist on fragmented hours, scraps of jobs. They face long waits for permanency, housing costs they cannot meet, and a profession that too often asks for endless sacrifice before offering security. Critical, time-sensitive life choices have to be delayed, sometimes even abandoned. Meanwhile, schools struggle to fill vacancies, subject choices narrow, and students lose out. This deficit and source of disappointment is a threat to the future quality of public education in Ireland. That is why TUI demanded and secured the one-year CID entitlement as part of the senior cycle negotiations to give our members security of tenure and hope. But more is required. Schools need an allocation to offer real jobs to our members. Returning teachers need a recognition of overseas service. All barriers that deter recruitment must be removed. The state must stop behaving as if the market will somehow solve a crisis that the state itself created. Excessive workload became even more severe over the past year. Burnout and stress are not side issues. They are central health and safety issues. They are union issues, delegates, issues on which we must act. And let's be clear, exhaustion is not a sign of professionalism. Burnout is not a companion to commitment. Overload is not a badge of honor. Much of the excessive workload is bureaucratic, most of it adding nothing to the use to the educational experience of our students. All of it deflating teachers from their core mission. Our members are being swamped by bureaucracy. And we really need to start saying no to this nonsense. Extra work outside normal hours is not normal or beneficial. It's unpaid labor. It fuels work intensification. It damages health. And when younger workers see a profession defined by exhaustion, inflexibility, and constant overreach, they will use their transferable skills somewhere else. That is why our message to members must stay simple and firm. Say no to unnecessary extra work. Say no early and say no collectively. Because what one teacher feels pressurized to do and accept today quickly becomes what every teacher is expected to do tomorrow. Every new priority, every new initiative that enters a workplace without time, support, and clarity adds to this burden. And we do ourselves no favors by pretending otherwise. If we are serious about workload, then we must use the demographic opportunities in the years ahead to secure what we have consistently demanded. The 2020 vision for post-primary education: no more than 20 students in class and no more than 20 contact hours a week. This is not a slogan, it's a necessary condition for a substantial and sustainable profession, necessary too for the quality and for inclusive education. We are now being told that AI will ease our burdens. We have heard this before. Computers, digitalization, smartphones. I remember being told video recorders were going to solve all my problems in my subjects. And they would decrease the workload. It didn't. The administrative burden would be removed. It wasn't. We would have more time to refine our professional skills. We haven't. The use in education settings of artificial intelligence may bring potential benefits. I think the jury is still out in that regard. But what we do know is that any such benefit will accrue only if and where and when AI-enabled technologies are deployed prudently, safely, and based on the professional judgment of our teachers, not the convenience of administrators or the various and ferocious appetites of big tech for big profit and market dominance. The risks associated with AI in education are huge. Deprofessionalization of teaching, dehumanization of learning, loss of curricular sovereignty, amplification of racial, gender, and cultural biases, system dependency, marketization, and privatization of a core public good. The undermining of democratic governance, replacement of the real and human interaction by machines or by pretense. The tech oligarchs do not share or support our educational values. They openly and expensively oppose them. They want our children in their unregulated marketplace. We cannot allow this in our public education system. The advent of AI also brings deep pedagogical and ethical uncertainty, especially around assessment, authenticity, and the impact on cognitive development of our students. Where AI is concerned, premature, panicked procurement could be catastrophic. The old adage still holds: let the buyer beware. Delegates, we in TUI tabled a professional demand to involve teacher unions as partners in every decision-making process related to AI in education. As a result, as part of the SCRISM collective agreement on senior cycle, a task force on AI has been established, and the TUI has suggested detailed terms of reference for this task force. Alongside all of this, schools and centres have faced major pressure through senior cycle redevelopment. To succeed, reform must be properly resourced, realistically phased, and built on fairness. That was our position in 2025, and it remains our position. Reform without resources is not reform at all. It's simply cost-cutting with a glossy brochure. All of this unfolded at a time when the world has become more unstable, more unequal, and more dangerous. War and humanitarian catastrophe continue to devastate communities in 2025, with children paying the highest price for decisions made by adults in positions of power. Killing children is never justified, is always an abomination and a crime. Depriving them of education and of hope is an act of cynical inhumanity. On behalf of members, TUI continue to speak for peace, for the protection of civilians, and for the right of children to live and learn in safety. We also continue to give practical support through donations to recognized humanitarian organizations, including UNICEF, the Red Cross, Education International, so that solidarity meant more than just words. As a consequence of the arrogance that asserts that might is right, inequality widened. Political extremes have now hardened. Trade tensions intensified. New tariffs and retaliatory measures added further instability to the global economy. Increased pressures on public finances and a deepened cost of living crisis is already hitting working people hard. We know what usually happens when governments feel financial pressure. They tilt towards austerity. We remember how teachers and lecturers, our members, were treated under the last regime of austerity. Delegates, we are not having that again. Ireland must invest properly in education. The state must end the cycle of underfunding, temporary fixes, unrestored cuts that still shape daily working life. We will not accept a system that asks educators to do more with less year after year while ministers talk about reform and sidestep their responsibility. As to the next public service pay deal, I wish to make it clear to all concerned that no new pay deal is possible unless the local bargaining element of the current one is concluded. Let nobody misunderstand us. Unfinished business cannot become the starting point for a new agreement. In 2025, TUI members delivered results because we remained organised, disciplined, and focused on achievable and enforceable outcomes. We did not chase shadows or mouth meaningless slogans. We secured protections, we forced corrections, we put time, pay, staffing standards, and collective bargaining at the centre of reform. That's important because in this union, we do not measure success by headlines captured. For the TUI, success is not spin, it's making life better for TUI members. Pay and bargaining were a central part of the work since last year's Congress. The Public Service Agreement 2024 to 26 set out a framework, but 2025 was about making sure that the framework delivered. On the 1st of March 2025, members received 2% increase or €1,000, whichever was greater. On the 1st of August 2025, a further 1% applied under this agreement. Post-primary teachers also received an additional 0.35% arising from sectoral bargaining, bringing the increase to 1.35%. That 0.35% matters, as every percentage increase matters. But it also arose because of sectoral bargaining in 2025, dealt with unfinished business from the earlier settlement of the PME allowance. You gave up 0.65% of your pay forever to settle the inequality of unequal pay. The TUI made sure that the balance was returned to members across every point of scale. There is also an outstanding retrospective element covering the period up to the 1st of August 2025, and we continue to press for that back money to be paid to serving teachers and our retired teachers. Under the current public service pay agreement, local bargaining was never optional. It is a core part of the agreement, worth up to 3% of basic pay costs. In real terms, at the end, it's worth €1,500 to someone starting as a teacher, up to about €2,800 a year for those people who are top of the scale. In post-primary, we linked local bargaining directly to cooperation with senior cycle redevelopment. The first instalment of the 1% was due from the 1st of September 2025. We demanded a general pay increase with backdating. So let me say this clearly. TUI will not allow productivity to become a code word for more work, more intensity, and more pressure. TUI will not allow local bargaining to become a Trojan horse for workload, expansion, or doing more for the same pay in less time. The single biggest system issue for post-primary members was the senior cycle redevelopment. Our task was straightforward: to secure enforceable supports for implementation and prevent unmanaged change being dumped on teachers. We approached that task seriously, strategically, and with the backing of our members. Well before the final talks concluded, we had already forced important concessions, sometimes forgotten. The ministerial plan to locate paper 1 of the Leaving Cert English and Irish at the end of 5th year was shelved. The proposal that teachers would mark their own students for state certification was withdrawn. And those were not minor adjustments. They were major corrections, one, because members stood firm, and because the TUI and the ASDI made it clear that acceleration without safeguards would be resisted. The package ultimately negotiated, the Senior Cycle Redevelopment Implementation Support Measures, known as SCRISM, was overwhelmingly endorsed by TUI members in a ballot. That result mattered, not because it endorsed the curriculum itself, but because it approved a collective agreement on the implementation supports tied to cooperation to enforceable protections. Those protections are substantial. The SCRISM collective agreement secured the 3% local bargaining increase, linking it to cooperation with senior cycle redevelopment. It rebalanced Crow Park hours for an initial 3-year period from 2025 on, with 19 hours for whole school activities and 14 teacher-led hours to be done on a high-trust basis. The agreement provided for a 1-year qualifying period for permanency through a CID, a direct and important gain for newer entrants and one that supports recruitment and retention. It secured additional posts of responsibility with timetabled alleviation returned to the allocation in schools for senior cycle purposes, and a dedicated post from the 1st of September 2026 for school offering senior cycle L1 and L2 learning programs where eligible. The agreement has also established a workload working group and committed the system to engagement on mitigation measures, including workload audits and a right to disconnect. This group has met, but we need it to progress at pace for the sake of our members. It also established the AI task force with the TUI, unfortunately the only union at the table, to address the ethical use and protect assessment integrity. Again, this group has met and our terms of reference in the main are agreed, but we need to see meaningful progress and concrete proposals and supports for our members. The measures agreed improve science funding by expanding qualifying subjects and increasing the per capita student grant from €13 to €25 per qualifying subject, with enhanced supports for our deaf schools and payments to be made in January of every year. And through the agreed implementation structures, the TUI continued to push for pace, corrections, and practical delivery. The work helped secure the deferral of Tranche 2 English and Accounting to September, which we welcomed. That is what collective bargaining looks like when it's serious. It does not remove every problem, it does not end every pressure, but it turns vague reform into specific obligations, and it gives members something concrete to enforce. It is, of course, not good enough that the department has dragged its heels on elements of what we secured and that you voted for. Strong action may be required or needed because we cannot tolerate a situation where a collective grievance are not adhered to by government departments. Compliance is not optional or aspirational. It must be honoured in full. The TUI always honours collective agreements, even parts we dislike. We therefore expect nothing less from our political masters. The government cannot ask for cooperation on a Monday, delay the circular on a Tuesday, and expect goodwill to bridge that gap for Wednesday. Junior cycle work also continued. Our objective remained consistent: coherence between junior cycle and senior cycle, fairness in grading, and a system that motivates students without adding unnecessary pressure to teachers. We achieved a clearer and more equitable grading structure early this year, and the agreed delivery of Irish bonus marks on a proper timeline. TUI is still looking for inclusion of the marks on the examination papers, as was requested by our members. The Teachers' Conciliation Council remained another critical forum in 2025. Through it, we advanced work on circulars, pursued progress on occupational injury schemes issues, continued to press for teacher supply measures, including summer pay for fixed-term contracts, and pushed for stronger well-being and safety protections. We also progressed work on domestic violence leave, guidance, and on updating violence at work protections. But let us be honest, guidance alone will not solve the problem of aggression against teachers. Just as no circular in itself ever reduced workload, no guideline ever protected a teacher unless management, departments, and agencies were prepared to and were made to act on it. If we want to keep teachers, we must protect teachers. We have secured real progress for adult educators: proper terms and conditions, sick leave, paid maternity leave, access to an incremental scale, and a pathway through conversions. Very importantly, in recent weeks, we have also secured a new mandatory sequencing for allocating additional hours to our members, thereby ensuring that those members who wish to work full-time now must be offered hours before new staff are hired. However, the first duty of a union is to protect the employment of our members. That is why what happened in GRETB is of grave concern. In that ETB, the work did not disappear, and the need did not disappear. The learners did not disappear. What disappeared was funding. You cannot claim to value adult education whilst cutting educators. Shrinking the provision, abandoning the learners. ESOL and adult literacy provision were cut back, and dedicated educators serving some of the most vulnerable people in our society were left facing the loss of their jobs. That's not reform. That is failure and betrayal. Solace and the department must fund this sector properly. Where there is work, there must be jobs. Where there is need, there must be provision. And where cuts threaten our members in Galway or in any other ETB, we must stand up and speak out about it. In the technological university and institutes of technology sector, the work to ensure a unified sector with parity in pay, conditions and esteem continues. We reject regional pay variation, fragmented structures, any model that weakens national standards or treats terms and conditions as negotiable extras. The lack of circulars and clear information from the Department of Further and Higher Education is unacceptable. It creates confusion, encourages solo runs by management, opens the door to deregulation by drift. If that continues, the sector will be weakened, not strengthened, and that is a challenge we must confront in the year ahead. In 2025, local bargaining loomed large in this sector too. We pursued a general pay increase linked to the cooperation on professorship roles and made clear that no structural change can be built on eroding terms and conditions. We also welcomed constructive cross-border proposals between DKIT and Queen's University Belfast, where they create a regional opportunity. But we made equally clear that the members' terms and conditions must be guaranteed. The TUI also seeks a clear path to university status for IADT. We have been assured by the department that they also support that aim, but await a proposal from the institute itself. On apprenticeships, our position remains consistent. Apprenticeships must be high quality, properly funded, respected, and regulated. We will continue to oppose any approach that undermines quality or devalues the role of educators and trainers. We also say clearly that the sub-minimum wage approaches have no place in the modern apprenticeship system. They undermine recruitment, dignity, and the long-term credibility of the sector and parity of esteem. During 2025, the union strengthened members' services, including enhanced income protection support, access to MyDoc, broader car insurance options, improved travel insurance, expanded tax advice supports, access to a wider range of mortgage brokers at no cost to members, and continued support the TUI Credit Union. Those supports allow the value of union membership to be felt in terms of everyday practical delivery. Recruitment and organising remains a core collective mission. We increased our membership by almost 8% this year. TUI's impressive membership growth over the last decade shows that we can achieve when we organise, but the rise in ununionised staff, or as I like to call them, not union members yet, in our workplace is a direct challenge to our collective leverage. Recruitment, therefore, is the foundation of every pay rise, every protection, every agreement we win, every agreement we're able to enforce. Every gain we have ever made came from one fact. When workers stand together, people in power start listening. Being in a trade union is not just about representation when something goes wrong. It's about shaping your working life. It's about shaping education in Ireland. It's about making sure government, employers, ministers, parents, and the wider public hear one organised voice that cannot be ignored. Therefore, every member is a recruiter. Every workplace is an organising space. If you want proper pay, stronger protections, and real workload limits, then grow the union where you work. To support the drive for new members, there is a full refund of fees for those on their first appointment. But recruitment is not just about joining, it's also about active participation. We need members to step forward, serve on committees, build branch capacity, help lead this union at local and national level. The TUI also completed this year one of its most significant internal projects, a member relationship management system. This major program began in 2021 with one clear goal: to modernize how we work so we can serve members better. By 2025, software development and testing were complete and the MRM system was delivered. The member portal and direct interaction functions are now live. Its rollout will continue in stages, and we are dealing with the inevitable early issues as they arise. That achievement did not happen by accident. It required sustained work from head office staff, careful planning, and real persistence. Moving from a 30-year-old database to a modern cloud-based system was not easy. As you know, many organizations have failed in that task. TUI did not, and I want to place on record particular appreciation to Patricia Keating, whose leadership and focus and determination were central to getting this project delivered. As you know, we will meet in Special Congress in Dublin on the 9th of May to consider and adopt a new rulebook for our union. This is an important and necessary step. Our predecessors gave us a rulebook that has served the TUI well for decades. However, because of significant legislative and regulatory developments, it's no longer adequate in a number of key respects. Our responsibility now is to ensure that the union has a rulebook that is fit for purpose in the current and fast evolving environment. That meets the standards required in modern corporate governance and that provides the protection that members and the organisation requires, in particular in regard to the capacity to take industrial action. I want to acknowledge the major work done by John McGowan in preparing this revised rulebook, under the guidance of the National Executive, in consultation with TUI staff, and informed by extensive legal advice. I know, I see the bills we have to pay for it. The rulebook is a contract between the union and its members. It's important. It's the primary document of the TUI. I would strongly encourage every branch to send a full delegation to the Special Congress on Saturday the 9th of May in Dublin, and to support a process that aims to protect our members, protect our organisation, meet modern governance standards, and give the TUI a solid foundation for the future. I want to take this opportunity to thank the Executive Committee for its work throughout the year. Members of the Executive dealt with serious issues, complex choices, and ongoing pressures with commitment and judgment. Their work is often unseen, but it is essential. This is the crowd behind me. I also want to thank David Waters for his leadership as president and wish him and his family every good fortune. Andy Quinn assumed the presidency in July 2025 and immediately had to engage with a demanding period of implementation and follow-through. Head office staff continue to be at the centre of everything this union delivers. They advise, represent, support, troubleshoot, keep the organisation moving every day. Their professionalism and dedication sustain this union in very real ways. I thank every one of them. We also mark the retirement of Liz Daly, Colette McGinley, Jane O'Sullivan, and Maria Malone, and we thank them for their long and valued service to TUI. We welcome Sarah Dunn and Sharon Bergen in 2025, appointed Anthony Dowling to the new associate role, and in 2026 we also welcomed Conor Foley and Aoife Lynch to various admin roles within the union. And recently we appointed our second associate official, Kate Breen, who will begin working with us in September. Later today, delegates, you will be asked to ratify two new appointments. Ray Ryan to a permanent post as Assistant General Secretary, and Anthony Dowling to a new fixed-term post as an Assistant General Secretary, covering for a colleague who's on a career break. I wish them both every success as they bring fresh strength to the head office team. I also want to wish Colm Kelly every success in his new role as he moves on from the TUI and to thank him sincerely for his outstanding service to the TUI as a member, an executive member, and for the past 13 years as Assistant General Secretary. I also want to acknowledge the contributions of the Retired Members Association, the Principals and Deputy Principals Association, the Adult Education Officers Association. Each brings experience, expertise, and a perspective that strengthens our work, sharpens our responses, and the way we can change across the system. But I also want to thank branch officers, activists, and you delegates. You are the first line of support for members. You organise, advise, represent, and hold the union together at local level. This year, we expanded training opportunities for branch officers, building on the success of Galway, and that work will continue as we make it a permanent feature every year. Your commitment is the living strength of the TUI. We have paused this morning to remember colleagues and friends who served this union with distinction and whom we have lost over the past year. Their work helped shape the union we rely on today. The union we inherit was built by people who did not wait for change. They organised for it. We remember them with respect and gratitude, and we extend our sincere sympathies to their families, friends, and colleagues. And to those who retired in 2025 and those who will retire before we meet again, thank you. You gave years of service to education and to this union. You shaped learners, you strengthened workplaces, and you helped build a collective voice that we must carry forward. Colleagues, the TUI remains in a strong financial position, as the annual accounts show, but this report is about more than finance. It's about direction. It's about priorities. It's about whether we accept drift, overload, underinvestment, or whether we organise, demand more, and force change. Our union is strong. Our members deserve better than a system held together by overwork and goodwill. And our students deserve better than a state that talks about ambition while starving education of investment. So let Congress 26 send a message that is sharp, united, impossible to ignore. We know our strength. We know our worth. We won't apologize for demanding what is fair. Respect our work. Protect our time. Pay us properly. Staff the system. Fund education, and stop asking educators to carry out a burden that belongs to government. That is the task before us, and that is the fight ahead, and that is why this union matters. It's my privilege as General Secretary to present this annual report to Congress 2026.